Welcome. Welcome to the El Cajon City Council meeting. The meeting is now called to order, and I'll ask our city clerk to please call the roll.
All council members are present.
Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and then remain standing for a brief moment of silence afterwards? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The city clerk posted orders of adjournment of the November 12th, 2024 meeting, the joint special meeting of November 19th, 2024, and the agenda of the December 10th, 2024 meeting in accordance with state law, city council, and housing authority policy. The first item on today's agenda is to provide the results from the 2024 general municipal election, and I'll ask our city clerk to recite the results of the November 5th, 2024 election.
Thank you, sir. The San Diego Register of Voters has canvassed the results of the November 5, 2024 election and declares the results for council members of El Cajon Districts 2, 3, and 4 and Measure J as follows. For District 2, Council Member Michelle Metchel ran unopposed and received 4,636 votes. For District 3, Council Member Steve Goebel received 5,754 votes, and Ms. Courtney Hall received 2,840 votes. For District 4, Deputy Mayor Phil Ortiz ran unopposed and received 4,823 votes. Measure J passed as it received 22,631 yes votes and 10,663 no votes. And it is staff's recommendation that the City Council adopts the next resolution and order declaring the results of the November 5, 2024 election for council members for Districts 2, 3, and 4. And the second reading of the ordinance for Measure J will be recited and voted upon later on during the normal place in our agenda.
Are there any speaker cards on this item?
No speaker cards.
Okay. I would like to make a motion then to adopt the resolution. Second. Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Well, congratulations, all of you. And the oath of office will now be administered by the city clerk, followed by remarks of the elected officials.
And we will go in order of districts. So we will start with Council Member Metchel, then Mr. Goebel, and then Mr. Ortiz. And if I could please have Mrs. Metchel join us.
I, Michelle Metchel,
Do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
against all enemies,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and to the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
upon which
I am about to enter.
Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming today. It has been my honor and privilege to have represented District 2 for the last 4 years, and I am honored and pleased to represent the district for another 4 years. This will be my last term, so you're stuck with me. And I have enjoyed it. yes, there are trying times, but I am honored, and I am going to work. This is, there's a lot to be done, and I'm just a grandma. And I want clean and safe streets, and this is what I'm going to do. So I'm ready to get out there and clean up these streets and make sure that your government listens to you, and this is what I want to do. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Goebel, if I can please have you raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, and state your full name,
I, Steve Goebel,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States.
the Constitution of the United States
And the Constitution of the State of California.
and the Constitution of the State of California
Against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic.
foreign and domestic,
That I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States.
to the Constitution of the United States
And the Constitution of the State of California.
and the Constitution of the State of California,
That I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion.
or purpose of evasion,
And that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
upon which
I am about to enter.
I am about to enter. Well, I have a couple family members I'd like to introduce to you because usually I don't ask them to come along for the city stuff. This is kind of my thing. But my wife is here, Lindy. Raise your hand. Our oldest daughter and husband and 4 grandchildren are here and back, all 4 girls. I'd like to recognize Dr. Gary Woods from the Grossmont High School District trustee. And one of my favorite people is Dick Brown. Dick, would you stand for a second? Dick was a city councilman back in the 60s here. He was the last appointed mayor in the city of El Cajon before we went to elections for mayor. And then he went on to be county supervisor for District 2. And an interesting fact to me is he is one of the 4 founders of what is known today as Sandag. And it is a lot different today than when he started it. He will tell you that. So it was him, George Bailey, the mayor of La Mesa, Assemblyman Pete Wilson at the time, and George Bailey in La Mesa, Dick Huff from the county. And the 4 of them sat in George Bailey's living room and said, the feds are saying we have to come up with some kind of organization to coordinate all of these grants to put roads throughout our county. So we have to do this together, and that's how that was founded. And so he is still a living legend. Thank you all who supported my campaign for re-election. Like Ms. Cheryl said, this is a pleasure to work, to be able to fight for the people of El Cajon every day. So I'm pleased to do this for the next 4 years and more if people will have me. Thank you very much.
Last but not least, if you could please state your name.
I, Phil Ortiz,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
Congratulations.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you for everyone that supported me the 6 years I've been on council. My family's here. I want to give a shout-out to my son, Wesley, the oldest, my daughter, Jolene, and Wesley's waving, Jolene's, and Judah, who's on my mom's phone right now. To my mom there in the front, Patty Ortiz, thank you for being here, and my wife, Rachel. I wouldn't be able to do any of this without you. As Michelle, my colleague, said, it's been an honor, really a life's honor, to serve the city of El Cajon and its citizens. And I think we have a great city here. I enjoy working with every single one of our council members and with our mayor. You're an outstanding mayor, so thank you very much. And as Michelle said, you know, the city's not perfect, but we do a good job here. We really do a good job managing public funds and putting citizens first. And I hope every citizen sees that. A long time ago, someone said that local government is the most important form of government that the U.S. has. If the federal government or state government were to shut down, the average person probably wouldn't know for maybe a year, if ever. But if the local government were to shut down, average citizens would know within a matter of minutes. That's police, that's fire, people calling for help. That's your water, that's your sewer, that's stoplights, that's roads. And so we understand as elected officials that we are the most important form of government. You have access to us, and all the problems roll downhill to us, and that's where we solve them. So we appreciate, and I appreciate you putting your confidence in us. Thank you very much for these 4 years and beyond. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, please. I didn't know how to do this, so if I could please call out my husband, Robert Mitchell, my granddaughter, Jade, and my daughter, Genevieve. Please stand up and be recognized. Yes, I do have family, and my friend Helen. I never do this, so I never call anybody out. So, yes, you got recognized now. Do your princess wave. Thank you.
All right, well, that's great. Thank you very much, everybody. We're going to take a small recess, and we'll be back for our regular meeting in about 15 minutes, and you can all mingle and talk to the newly elected candidates, and we'll come back. Thanks. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I think we'll continue the meeting now. Now I'd like to invite Chief Moulton to join the City Council and I and accept a much-deserved commendation. Well, today is a happy and a sad day. It's always nice to see somebody complete a successful career and get to the point where they can retire with everybody's praise and thank you. But it's tough for us because I've really enjoyed having you as the chief of police. I've always felt safe, and I felt like the city was in good hands, and that you represented us extremely well and always made us look good. So thank you so much for your service and all that you've done through your long career, not just as chief, but as every other branch. Maybe you could tell everybody all the things you've done.
Well, I guess it's real. Between cleaning out my office and this, I guess it's really happening. And as much as I'm going to miss city council meetings. Now, first of all, for the mayor and council, thank you for your unwavering support over the years. It's made my job a lot easier. To the community, I would say it's been a pleasure, serving this community and protecting it for the last 29 years. To the men and women of the El Cajon Police Department, I would say it's been an absolute one of the greatest honors of my life leading you. To my captains, Rob Ransweiler, Royal Bates, Jeremiah Larson, thank you for your leadership. I know you guys will continue. Rob's retiring tomorrow. The others will continue leading the department and serving the El Cajon Police Department and its community well. Thank you so much, everybody. To all the other department directors, without your friendships, without your collaborations, I would not have been as successful as I have been. And to my family, the real heroes, my wife Michelle, my daughter Ashlyn, my son Nathan is off at college. They're the reason, if anybody wants to thank me, they should thank them. They're the reason they were able to give me to you for the last 29 years to help make this community safe, and I think we accomplished that. So thank you so much. My heart is full. It's filled. These times are filled with emotion. It's bittersweet, but I'm looking forward to the next chapter in my life. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chief.
Chief, thank you for getting us through 2020. That was a rough period locally, statewide, nationally. You got us through that. I appreciate your investment in our retail community. When we had retail theft, you went into Home Depot, you went into Target, and you said, that's enough, guys. We're gonna send our police there to make a statement that retail theft is not going to be allowed. So the technology, the drones, the LPRs, fantastic. Thank you.
Chief, thank you so much for your leadership. You've created a culture, and chiefs before you have created a culture here in El Cajon that is unique and that I have not seen anywhere else. And it is known amongst law enforcement and fire agencies in San Diego County. It's something that you have built and created and continued to maintain. And that's not an easy thing, especially in the line of work that you guys are doing, where you're faced with extremely difficult situations. We wish you could give you all the funding in the world, but we can't, so you have to make do with what you have. And attitude reflects leadership, and every single police officer that I come in contact with has excellent attitude about the job, even though the constraints that we have. And so thank you for doing that and creating an outstanding succession plan. That's the mark of another incredible leader. So I can't thank you enough for everything you've done for our city. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Chief, for being the leader that you are. You have supported our businesses, you've supported the residents, you've supported the city itself as a whole. And that shows in the reduction in crime, the reduction in just overall safety, or not reduction in safety, but the increase in safety and the reduction of crime. And thank you so much. That shows in your leadership.
Chief, thank you for keeping the criminals under control. And thank you for being kind-hearted and compassionate person. That means a lot to everybody in this city.
If I could say a few words, one of the most difficult decisions a city manager makes is who's the police chief. And for Mike, it was an easy choice, and I've never regretted it. I've never had a day, I've never had buyer's remorse about hiring Chief Moulton, and he's just been a stellar leader. The way he connects with his staff, the way I hear his staff talk about him speaks volumes. The way he connects with our executive team speaks volumes. The way that he talks about our community tells you a lot about the character that Chief Moulton has brought to the table. He's innovative. He doesn't really have a peer to talk to at City Hall, nor do I. And so we kind of rely on each other a lot, and so we've become friends over the years. I just want to express my appreciation to him. This week and next week, we lose over 60 years of experience between Captain Ransweiler and Chief Moulton. I just want to especially call out Captain Ransweiler as well for his service to the city of El Cajon. If we can give him a round of applause, that'd be great. He has also been a friend and a confidant and someone that I could share and counsel with. I appreciate that. But Chief Moulton has been just a stellar example. He has set the bar really high for future chiefs. And we're excited to pin on the badge of a new chief in January with Captain Larson. And but just with that, Chief, we want the best for you, and we know that you'll still be a friend and you'll still be in touch.
Thank you so much. I could, there's so many people I need to thank. There's people in the crowd that I want to thank. We could go on for hours with it. I do want to point out. I want to really thank Graham. His friendship, his mentorship, his leadership have made me successful. And we've been through some trying times, as we talked about through 2020 and through 2021. And also, I want to recognize my executive assistant, Lindsay. I mean, without her, I would not have been able to do this either. So thank you so much. Thank you to everybody here. You know that you all mean something to me. We're going to do another thing in another week, and I'm going to thank more people. But thank you so much, and thanks for everybody for coming.
We're not quite done yet. We have a beautiful commendation for Chief Moulton. I'm going to read you want me to read this whole thing or the last paragraph? He's not the kind of guy who wants me to read the whole thing. Now, therefore, I, Bill Wells, Mayor for the City of El Cajon, together with the City Council, extend our profound gratitude to Chief Moulton for his unwavering dedication, extraordinary service, and exemplary leadership. Congratulate him on his well-deserved retirement and wish him continued success, happiness, and fulfillment in all of his future endeavors. In recognition of this outstanding achievement, I hereby proclaim December 17th, 2024 as Police Chief Michael Moulton Day in the City of El Cajon. Let this day serve as a reminder of the dedication, leadership, and commitment that our police chief has brought to our community. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations. For our last presentation, I would like to invite Grossmont Healthcare District CEO Christian Wallace to the podium to share with us. Hello, Christian. How are you?
I am well, Mayor Wells. That was hard to follow. Graham, did you set me up to have the next presentation after all that went on this afternoon? Council members, thank you very much. I really appreciate this opportunity to give you an update on the Grossmont Healthcare District. My name is Christian Wallace. I'm the CEO of the Grossmont Healthcare District. I came here about 3.5 years ago, and one of the things I did when I first got here was talk with the mayors, talk with the city managers, and ask them what their perception of the healthcare district was and what we could do in the future. And I really took that, used it towards our strategic plan, and developed a path forward. So today is an opportunity to come back. It's the first council meeting I've been to, but to come back to the cities and say this is what the healthcare district is doing, and this is what we'd like to do in the future. It turns out that the previous things that we have done have been great, but we're starting to focus more on programming and education on a recurring basis. Through the process of discovery, we've also become a convener as well for health and wellness. So we'll go through a quick slide presentation. There we go. So if you don't know what a healthcare district is, I knew a little bit about it when I got here and found out a lot more once I got in the seat. But a healthcare district covers what used to be a rural territory. We built a hospital in the 1950s. The healthcare district took care of the hospital until 1991 when a fortuitous decision to lease out the operations to Sharp. And Sharp has done a fantastic job in running our hospital for the last 32 years. We've got another 27 years coming with that lease and the second lease that was re-upped in 2014. But they do a fantastic job. And so part of our mission in the healthcare district is to make sure that Sharp runs the hospital the way that we'd want it to be run. Good quality, good cost, appropriate access, all those things that you want in a community hospital. And our board of directors oversees that to make sure that we have a hospital that we can be proud of. Because Sharp does such a great job at that, we can focus on the second part of our mission. The second part of our mission is public health. Getting out in the community and making sure that we have the community health and wellness program and education that makes our people better. So our geography is pretty large. El Cajon is one of the largest cities within our healthcare district, but we run from La Mesa out to Campo, from Santee Lakeside down to the border. So from a geographic perspective, we're 750 square miles, we're 520,000 residents, and we're unique. So from a public health perspective, the way you run access to care in the rural setting is not the same as you do in the urban setting. The way you'd run addiction or behavioral health is not the same in any of these communities. So when we look at public health, we look at it from a rural, a suburban, and urban perspective and try to create programs that help each of the communities. And you can see under the community support the things that we've been focusing on. Really, the past 3 years have been focusing on recurring programs and education that you can count on from week to week and month to month. For those of you who don't know, including out in the audience, we have a health and wellness library. This is the biggest kept secret in San Diego, and especially in East San Diego County, and we want to let this secret out. The Health and Wellness Library is the only one in San Diego County. I think if you passed it and realized it was sort of associated with the hospital, you'd think it was maybe, for physicians or for nurses or for any of the clinical staff. This community resource is for you. It's for you and your families. It's for those times when you get diagnosed with something out of the hospital and you're not quite sure what you were just told. It's for your wife, your mother. It's even for your kids. So when grandma gets diagnosed with something, you don't quite know how to explain it. We have a children's section of our health and wellness library that will help you explain to your kids what just happened. It's a tremendous resource. It's a gem for the East San Diego County, and I encourage you to stop by and visit. The other things that we've been trying to do is a health and wellness programming. So rather than doing one-off health fairs each year or every quarter, we've been trying to have things that you can count on. So the third Thursday, for example, is chair yoga. The first Monday is Drums Alive, things that keep you active and educated. Our fourth Wednesday is Wellness Wednesday, where we'll bring in an educator, physician, allied health professional, somebody that can help teach you about nutrition, about brain health, about mobility, those things that we want for the health and wellness of our people. We also give out grants and sponsorships. We foster partnerships and collaboration. And we do a lot of advocacy. So when we see things at the state, the county, or the local level, we'll advocate as long as it meets the health and wellness, the hospital, or any special district need. I'm going to focus on a couple of things. One of the things that, from the programming and education standpoint, that we realized was that we've got a great library that is in the westernmost part of our 750 square mile geography. So when we look at our people who come to the library, you can imagine there's a whole lot of La Mesa and there's a whole lot of not anybody else. We've got a lot of territory to cover. I would say El Cajon is probably the second most attended out of the services that we provide. But we want to get a chance to get that library out into the community. So our way of doing that was we created a mobile outreach library. It's in the process of getting retrofitted right now, and we're going to be out to your communities. We're going to take everything in the lower part of that picture that you see in our library, and we're going to do our best to stuff it in that van, and we're going to be at the Senior Center the first Monday of every month. We're going to be at the VFW the second Wednesday of every month. We're going to be out in Campo to talk to the rural community, Descanso. We're going to be out in the community to make sure that we take the library that we take so valuable in our own La Mesa and bring it out to the community where people can actually access it. And you can do all those things. Check out a book. We'll get you online resources that you could only get out of a university, thousands of material. And we constantly cultivate the material in the library to make sure that what we give you is worth giving you, because we realize the responsibility we have, that we're handing you information that you're going to count on to take care of yourselves and keep you off the Google. The other approach we have is we have a lot of programs that happen on the district compound. So like I said, Drums Alive, where you can see the picture there. Drums Alive, chair yoga, art therapy, these type of programs that we do at the district, we need to get outside of the district into the local communities. So what we're going to each of the city managers and our local nonprofits is saying, look, if you have a program that you want to bring, if there's something that we're doing that you want to bring to your local community, or if there's something that you can think of that you want to bring to your local community that educates the folks, that allows them to have knowledge about prevention and how to keep themselves healthy, or if they have a disease and they want to know how to manage it, how they can manage it. These are sort of the parameters and guidelines that we have. We'll help you fund it. The program requirements and responsibilities are in our guide. Graham has a copy of that. And we want to bring these health and wellness programs out into the community rather than having people commute to the programs in La Mesa. It's our way of getting out there. We're new at this, so between the mobile library and the program support guide, these are new things for us. So we're going to bring them through our committee process, through our board process, and ultimately, hopefully bring them back to you into your communities. So that's program and education. Those are the things that we do on a day-to-day basis that we provide support out there. But what we noticed in the process was Gross Mountain Healthcare District is a great convener. We're a great third-party neutral representatives that bring multiple organizations together to solve really, really difficult problems. And I'll talk about one. The reason why transfer of care of collaboration is up first was the fire chiefs for East County brought me in for a meet and greet in the first 6 months I was here. And I tell this story, so I apologize to Chief Coe. He's heard this probably 10 times already. I walk in, I'm ready to do a meet and greet, and there's about 12 fire chiefs sitting around a table and a chair for me up in front. And I quickly realized that maybe it wasn't such a meet and greet. They accommodated me. I told them about the direction of the district. But ultimately, they said wall times are out of control. We got to solve wall times. We got to get the paramedics off of the emergency department wall in their rigs, and we got to get them back out into the community. How are you going to help us? So we got together. Initially, it was just us, the emergency department, and a couple of fire chiefs getting together to talk about how we reduce wall times. But as the momentum started rolling, we started getting more and more organizations, as you can see there, interested in helping to solve the problem. And that's the way we approached it. This was Chief Coe and I and the director of the emergency department getting together and having a common goal of saying, look, we're going to solve this together. We're not going to throw stones at each other. We're going to work on this as a group because we realize each of us has a part in this process. This process has been happening for a long time, and we're going to help solve it together. So the minute we start getting aggravated with one another, it's time to step out, step back in, and let's get back to the discussion again. While this was going on, one of the things that I really want to thank the El Cajon City Council for is the nurse navigation program. It is incredibly difficult, I've noticed, now being a little bit in local government, how it's hard to be innovative, how it's hard to take taxpayer dollars and put it at risk for a program that you're not entirely sure of. That took incredible courage from this El Cajon City Council, and I really want to thank you for doing that. What it gave us the opportunity to do was to sit back and watch El Cajon's numbers come in, watch the data, and see how a pilot scale program could possibly be magnified on a larger scale to give more people better data and more people an idea of whether this can be replicated throughout not only the county, but the state is looking at it, and GMR tells me that the entire country is looking at these programs as well. That never would have happened had you not voted for the nurse navigation program to begin with. I do want to take this moment to thank Chief Coe. He's been an unbelievable ally, friend, confidant, all the things that you'd want in a partner in a program like this. So really, Chief Coe has been a great friend of the healthcare district and a great friend of Maine. The next is the Rural Health Coalition. The Rural Health Coalition was an effort to put more focus on a community that's often forgotten about. When I got here, the rural community, if there wasn't an ROI attached for it, if there wasn't a return on investment, there was no reason to fund it, either through nonprofits or through a lot of other efforts. You'd go as far as to Alpine, but I really couldn't afford anybody else to go further than that. If you're going to focus on the rural communities, you need to forget the ROI. The ROI is the impact you make in the community out there and the people's lives. And that's what we're all committed to. As you can see, that list has grown as well, the partners on there. The signature program here has been the Rural Discharge Program, which we started with County Supervisor Anderson and ultimately County HHS and County CAL FIRE. This program we developed from scratch, 9 zip codes in the rural community. If you're discharged from Sharp Grossmont Hospital in one of those 9 rural zip codes, we'll ask you, do you want a follow-up visit every week for a month? Yeah, there's one now. 1 week every week for a month. If you say yes, then we'll send a nurse, a public health nurse, in a County CAL FIRE truck, and we'll send them to whatever address that you give us, and we'll stop by. And for 4 weeks, the nurse will go in and do medication management, bandages, nutrition, all those things that nurses do. County CAL FIRE will go around and do defensible space, Knox boxes, fire extinguishers, all those things that you want from a safety perspective. Together, they meet up at the end, and they do all the social services that the patients and clients need in order to make themselves better. What has the result been? We went from, in the initial halfway through, it was a 13 if you opted out of the program, you didn't want it, there was a 13.9% readmission rate. If you opted into the program, it was a 4% readmission rate. And now we're actually down to a 1% readmission rate. So if you opt into the program, there's a good chance we're not going to see you in our emergency department again. The last one I'll talk about is the healthcare workforce. This is a thing that's been going on. Healthcare workforce issues have been going on for years, nursing in particular. But COVID has made this a little bit more drastic. The timeline that we're going to have a void in our nursing and our certified nursing assistants and our medical assistants and our patient care aides is coming. And so we didn't want to sit back and watch the tidal wave hit us. We wanted to make sure that we hit it head on with an action plan. You know, if we're going to go at this, we're going to fail forward rather than failing backward. So we contracted with the East County Economic Development Council to do a year study about what it is we needed. Ask the employers, what is it that you're in desperate need of? We went to our local community colleges and adult education centers. What is it that you provide? And we go back to the Grossmont Union High School and saying, how are you feeding these programs? And by aligning the employer with the education and back to young 17-year-olds who don't know what they want to do, we create a pipeline that moves them forward. These pipelines have either been broken or there's so much sediment in it you can't move through it. But together, this group is getting together with 19 specific action steps specific to East County, and we're going to line up the pipes that are broken. We're going to remove the sediment that's built up that allows the flow of workforce to get through to employers. Our hospital is one of the major employers in East County. We have more FQHCs. We need to move that pipeline so that these workers can get to good paying jobs and to help us in the future. Lastly, I want to talk about something the hospital is doing because we're incredibly proud of it. This is a really large project. We're going to build the Sharp Grossmont Hospital for Neurosciences. This just isn't the next neurosciences center that pops up. This is state of the art. This is the best equipment, the best physicians, the best people in the best building taking care of our people. There are going to be 16 ICU beds, 16 PCU beds, 18 acute rehab beds. Ultimately, we're going to have 15 beds dedicated to the Neurosciences Center, net total of 20 additional new beds for this. But this is going to be one of those things that people all over the county will be sending to get the great care that we have at Sharp Grossmont Hospital. The estimated completion dates, ribbon cutting, is around May of 2025. So we'll make sure we get the word out that you all can know that this new East County jewel is there for you. And that's it. So we did our strategic plan. We did 2022 to 2025 when I first got here. We're looking to re-up that. The community health needs assessment that the hospital association puts out is due in January, February timeframe. So we use the community health needs assessment to educate us and inform what our next strategic plan is going to be. And it'll be 2025 to 2028. Again, thank you very much, council members. I really appreciate coming and talking to you about the good work that we're doing, and happy to entertain questions or continue on.
Thank you, Christian. Great presentation. Let me see if anybody has questions or comments. Gary?
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much. This is one of the best presentations that's ever come before us. And you explained it in a way that I could understand everything, so I appreciate that a lot.
Yes, sir.
So, nothing more noble than taking care of the public's health. So thank you for what you do.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Anybody else? I just want to thank you, Christian. I worked with you on a couple projects, and you're just outstanding. I'm so glad that you're here working with us and with the healthcare district, and I wish you only the best. And please feel free to come back to us anytime. The city of El Cajon can be of help to you and your endeavors.
I appreciate it, Mayor Wells. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christian.
Mayor, as he's sitting down, just really quickly, Christian reached out to look for some opportunities for some partnership, and we're actually working on a proposal right now so we can actually have a partnership and bring their services directly into El Cajon through our Parks and Recreation Department. So pretty cool stuff.
Wonderful. Merry Christmas, Christian. Okay, agenda changes. Staff, do you have any agenda changes?
I have one change to take off the consent calendar or discuss it before, and that's item 17. There's been a change in the proposal, and we wanted to bring that to you. There's a new resolution. If you like, I can go over it now, or if you want to go ahead and take it up out of order, we'll do that.
Go ahead and you're doing this.
I interrupted you, huh?
No, it's fine. Always for you, Counselor.
The change is that we were attempting to sole source an acquisition of a grappler truck from the authorized company here in Southern California, MMEI, it's Municipal Maintenance Equipment, Inc. They get it from a company called Peterson Industries back in Florida. MMEI could not meet the requirements of being an active registrant under the SAM.gov program in time for us to acquire the equipment. However, Peterson Industries has agreed that they would be able to do that. They are an active registrant in the SAM.gov program, and we have solicited their proposal too, or will be in the process of soliciting that proposal. It still will remain a sole source proposal. I've revised the resolution to address the actual award of this proposal to Peterson Industries Inc. instead of MME, and there shouldn't be any change to anything that's going to happen, except it'll be somebody different providing the equipment directly to us. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to try to explain more of where we are on this.
Any questions?
Wait, so are we still voting on it, or are we
No,
pulling it?
we're taking it
We're
off.
pulling it.
We're pulling
Okay.
it.
Okay, thank you.
No, we're actually still on there, but there's a modified resolution to consider rather than the one that's actually in the agenda packet. That resolution is found on your desk
Oh, okay. So
as well.
But we are going to vote on this.
Yeah. And Mr. Mayor, there's a second staff report we'd like to pull, or agenda item we'd like to pull as well. I'm looking at Mr. Foley. I can explain that if you want, or do you want to? Okay.
I'll go ahead and explain it. This is item 13. There was an additional resolution that should have been included in your packet of materials. It was prepared for you. It's at your desk as well. That is to provide a resolution for the El Cajon Housing Authority's adoption of the investment policy that's created by the city for both themselves, for the city and for the housing authority. It was inadvertently omitted. The agenda report talked of having resolutions, and unfortunately, my office did not attach one before we moved it along.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Council, do you have any agenda changes? All right. I need to make a motion to approve the agenda changes as outlined by our attorney. Second. Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
We are now at consent items. Consent items are routine matters enacted by one motion, according to the recommendation listed below. With the concurrence of the City Council, a council member or person in attendance may request discussion of a consent item at this time. Council members, do you wish to pull any of the consent items? Staff?
No, sir.
Angela, do we have any speaker cards for consent items?
There are no speaker cards, sir.
All right. I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent items.
Second.
Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
We're now at public comment. At this time, any person may address a matter within the jurisdiction of the City Council, Housing Authority, successor agency to the El Cajon Redevelopment Agency that is not on the agenda. Comments relating to items on today's agenda are already been taken at the time that the item is heard. State law prohibits discussion or action on items not on the agenda. However, City Council and Housing Authority members may briefly respond to statements or questions, and an item may be placed on a future agenda. Angela, do you have any speaker cards for public comment?
Sir, we have one, Brenda Hammond.
Hey, Brenda.
Hi. Hi, Graham, Mr. Mitchell. I wasn't going to say this. I didn't realize that Grossmont was going to be here. I don't know if I told you that Grossmont saved my life back in 1977. I died on Fletcher Parkway. Fire Department 13 came and revived me, and then I flatlined again twice at Grossmont. I was only 17 years old, so I have this in my heart for Grossmont. Plus, they took care of everybody in the family all these years. So that brings me to so we just had an election. Congratulations to everybody. The presidential election, so here we go. We had the blue side. And blue's my favorite color, but it has nothing to do with politics. So we had the blue side, and we had the red side. The red side won, so get over it. It's done. We're done with that. So now, okay. So red and blue makes purple. So can we just all get along like we used to, like in the 70s and 80s? The political parties were They fought, but they ended up working things out, right? So can we just go back to that? Would be nice. Thank you.
Good idea, Brenda. Okay, we're now at public hearings. We have 2 items to consider. Item 18 is for an amendment to the El Cajon Municipal Code, Title 16 and Title 17, and specific plan number 182, and I'll ask staff to tell us about this item. Hi, Noah.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. Noah Alvey, Deputy Director for the Community Development Department. This essentially is our annual zoning code update, yet expanded with additional updates. So this year we're incorporating also Title 16, which is a subdivision ordinance, and then as well as specific plan 182 with some items that Council had directed us to look at. So just breaking up at a high level, the proposed updates for the subdivision ordinance and zoning code are related to housing. It's primarily related to new state laws. And then we're also doing for the zoning ordinance some commercial use updates as well as some miscellaneous items. And then for a specific plan 182, the 3 items that council asked us to take a look at were signs and light ropes in the downtown area, also the display of merchandise, and then on-sale alcohol outlets or bars. So I'm going to start off with housing. For housing, again, these are all primarily related to new or recent state laws. The first item is related to infill subdivisions. So new state law says that infill subdivisions of up to 10 units have to be approved ministerially. So that means essentially just with a permit that's approved by staff. So there's no changes to the procedures or the development standards or anything else related to these subdivisions. All the same standards would apply. All that's being proposed to change in the subdivision ordinance is to delegate that authority from council to the city engineer for the approval of the subdivision, and then they would go through the same zoning standards. So no changes there on the zoning standards. For residential care facilities, right now in single-family zones, we don't allow residential care facilities. We're changing that to allow large residential care facilities with a conditional use permit. That is in relation to fair housing laws that we need to comply with. So they will still need to go through a conditional use permit, and they'll go to the Planning Commission. It's the same process that we have for care facilities in multifamily zones. A new interesting update from state law is that we do now have to permit accessory dwelling units that were constructed without permits. So if someone constructed something illegally, they can come in and go through a process with the building official to make sure that it's safe as it relates to building codes. But it has to be approved if it is deemed safe by the building official. And then the last item for housing is related to accessory dwelling units. So this one is pretty large as well. So for ADUs, as of right now in multifamily zones, you can have 2 ADUs be added to an apartment complex. The change in state law is going to allow up to 8 ADUs or the same number of ADUs as the apartments that are there. So as an example, if you have a 4-unit apartment complex, you would be allowed up to 4 ADUs. You have a 10-unit apartment complex, you could go up to 8 ADUs. Additionally, it also says that we can no longer require replacement parking. So if you have a parking lot, you can build those 8 ADUs in the parking lot, and the city can't require replacement parking. So I thought I might pause for 1 second there just to see if there's any questions. Okay.
You have questions, anybody? I wish I could talk about it, but the state of California has decided. So.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Gary.
I just had a question. So if there's like a duplex in a large lot, and they put in one more unit?
So if it was a duplex, they would just be able to have the 2 ADUs. So you can't have more ADUs than units on a property.
Oh, so the existing duplex, can someone come in and put another unit?
Yes, potentially. I mean, if the lot size through zoning regulations allowed more units, but the update here is just related to the accessory dwelling units. So it's just the number of units that they have there. no more ADUs than the number of units that are on the property.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
A couple questions. Thank you, Noah. So for the infill housing, up to 10 dwelling units, so that's a by right build from now on. They don't need to come to council to get approval. Okay. And does our zoning still apply, or okay, it does.
Yeah, the zoning regulations will stay the same, so they'll go through the same procedures for parking and setbacks and design review.
Okay.
It just will be approved at a staff level as opposed to coming to a public
Up
hearing.
to 10. Okay. And then the residential care facilities, you said large. Is there a definition of large? How many beds?
Large is typically 14 or more.
Okay, so 14 or more are permitted by right in residential areas per the state of California.
So state law requires us to allow them under fair housing regulations.
Okay.
We have the ability to either allow them by right or with a conditional use permit. So we're proposing to do the conditional use permit so we can have a little bit greater authority and regulation over those.
Okay. And then ADUs. Oh, the elimination of replacement parking, is that within transportation hub, bus stop, or is that anywhere?
That's anywhere.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. Thank you.
Michelle, go ahead.
Okay, on the housing, on the residential care facilities, is that, so if you have a sober living facility and they've taken a house, they've turned it into shared rooms for sober living, that's considered a residential care facility?
So that's not actually a residential care facility according to state regulations. Typically, those shared housing arrangements for sober living is just a shared rental arrangement where people are living together. And so typically that's just regulated by the building official and maximum occupancy within the dwelling.
Okay. And then I have a question. Because I'm concerned about when we start adding, if you have a piece of property and you have septic tanks and alike, when you start adding more people and more housing, you're adding more waste to that septic line, the plumbing and everything else. Isn't there regulations to keep that from overwhelming the system?
Yeah, for any new project that would come in, we would route that project to engineering services, and they would take a look and make sure that there's sewer capacity to serve that development and look at other requirements. We really don't have many houses left in the city that are on septic systems.
Okay. So when you have ADUs that were not permitted and we're just allowing that doesn't have an effect on that?
We're in the process of starting on a sewer master plan update, and engineering services is working on that. But generally, there's sufficient capacity citywide to accommodate these ADUs.
I mean, I know the state's kind of mandating that these are all being let in, and as long as they're safe, there's not much we can do about it.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I know it. Thank you. First of all, I believe no new septic systems are allowed in the city of El Cajon. They must be on a sewer system. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay. And so anybody who wants to build an ADU who's on a lot with a septic system, they'd have to convert the whole lot to a sewer system, including the main unit. Or could the main unit remain on septic and the ADU be on sewer?
I mean, there's always unique circumstances, but we really don't have that many houses in the city that are still on septic systems. I think at a minimum we would evaluate it, look at its proximity to existing sewer lines, and coordinate with the County Department of Environmental Health to see if there's capacity within that system.
Okay.
So we want to do what makes sense when it comes to new development.
Let's talk about the single-family zones, because there are different size lots for single-family. And can you imagine somebody who's on a lot in a neighborhood, and all of a sudden a large project goes in across the street from them, which doesn't really fit the character of the neighborhood, but state law says so what. But I imagine that you have some discretion over how many beds are in a residential care facility. Is that correct?
Yes, the whole thing would be evaluated under the conditional use permit. So we would be looking at compatibility with surrounding properties, looking at the massing of the structure as it relates to the houses. So I would characterize it as being similar to maybe placing a religious facility in a residential zone, where you want to make sure there's sufficient on-site parking. You want to make sure that the structure, blends in well with the surrounding community.
Yeah, I'm thinking more of some of the hills around El Cajon might have larger lots, half-acre lots. And you can imagine a neighborhood with half-acre or acre lots. Somebody buys an acre and puts in 14 units up there. That would be allowed?
So it's really just similar to the existing care facilities that we have. So like if you go along Mollison or on Washington, there's a few care facilities that are in close proximity to residential zones. So it would just be evaluated with the conditional use permit. If there was a compatibility issue, like it was in a large lot area where it didn't make sense, staff would still have the ability to recommend denial of that at the Planning Commission.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Anybody else? Noah, thank you very much.
Great. So we'll continue on just to the commercial and miscellaneous uses. So for commercial uses on the update, we are proposing to remove the sunset date for the emergency housing pilot program that was scheduled to end this year. And so the code update eliminates that sunset date. We're also proposing to allow temporary feeding areas in commercial zones with a temporary use permit. We've had some food distribution events at city parks where it kind of would have made more sense to do it on an adjacent commercial property, but the zoning code required a conditional use permit. So what we're proposing is to allow it by a temporary use permit. They could do it twice, but if they do it more than twice, they would have to go forward with a conditional use permit. We're also doing some voluntary provisions for clean air vehicles, just to give that authority in the zoning code if a private property owner wants to exercise that right, and also allow them to implement transportation demand strategies for parking reductions if they are interested in that. The last miscellaneous use update is related to the land use table for wholesale uses. Recently, the council approved the wholesale use for the cash and carry business at Chase and Avocado, and so we're just adding a footnote to the land use table to reflect that decision. So for specific plan 182, we are proposing to eliminate flashing or blinking lights in the downtown area. We did some consultation with the PBID, and they were in support of eliminating that requirement or eliminating the allowance of flashing lights. We also talked about whether or not lights should be of a singular color or multiple colors. That was one of the items that council discussed when we talked about the sign ordinance. Ultimately, the PBID recommended supporting multiple colors of lights just to encourage more variety in the downtown. As a cleanup item, we are proposing to clarify merchandise display standards to encourage display cabinets. That's something that's been in SP 182 since it was originally approved. But we wanted to clarify that because we are seeing a lot of merchandise that's being stacked up against windows or bulk merchandise being displayed. So this will help to clarify those standards and allow us to do better enforcement. The last item for specific plan 182 is related to on-sale alcohol or bars. So council had discussed that. We're proposing up to 2 outlets in the downtown area. We're also proposing a 2,500 square foot limitation. So the 2,500 square foot limitation would be similar in size to Main Street Tavern, Main Street Tap. So we're, after consultation with the police department, we wanted to emphasize more of a neighborhood feeling type establishment, so not something that was larger. And then on this map, we're showing the on-sale eligible locations. So it includes East Main Street between Magnolia and Claydale Avenues, and then on Rhea over to Solsfeld Way. We also took a look at La Mesa and North Park. Those were 2 items, things that council had discussed. In a similar stretch along La Mesa Boulevard, they have 3 on-sale outlets. One of the challenging things is distinguishing between the restaurants and just the bars that are there, but on a similar scale area, 3 outlets in La Mesa. North Park, a little bit bigger, a little bit more stretched out. They had 5 outlets when we took a look at North Park. But overall, 2 outlets seems like about the right fit for right now. That's something that we can continue to reevaluate in the future moving forward. So if we see success, we can modify as needed. So the Planning Commission recommended approval of all of these changes. They did want to emphasize that they didn't want to see the addition of alcohol outlets increasing crime in the downtown area. But aside from that, the recommended actions from staff were to open the public hearing and receive public testimony, and then to direct staff to prepare ordinances for introductions at the next council meeting. Happy to answer any more questions.
More questions for Noah? Quick question about the lights. Will the people that have lights that will be not conforming, will they be required to take them down, or will they be grandfathered in?
So we have an amortization process that's in the code update. So essentially would allow them up to 6 months at this point to recoup their investment in those lights, and then they would be asked to take those down. But if the ordinance is approved, we would do some outreach in the beginning of next year and encourage them to work with us.
Great. Okay, then. Thank you, Noah. Oh, Steve, go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
The 2,500 square feet for the bar, what if a brewer wanted to go into the downtown plan, which extends all the way out to Marshall, that self-storage area down the new Main Street, Green Street project? 2,500 feet wouldn't really accommodate somebody who wants to put a manufacturing or brewing facility. Would that be something that would be considered on an exception basis, or would that not be allowed?
In the zoning code right now, we do allow microbreweries, and they can be larger than 2,500 square feet. So originally, when Urban was approved as the downtown brewery, that obviously exceeds 2,500 square feet there. So any microbrewery that wants to come in would be able to take advantage of that section of the code. So it's just the restriction on the size of bars, so that the bars didn't grow and become larger. There's also provisions where you can add alcohol to other uses. So, there's the allowance of alcohol at the Magnolia as an entertainment venue. So there's other options for people that want to be larger than 2,500 square feet to add alcohol.
So the key to 2,500 feet for a bar only is to limit potential problems.
Yes.
Not necessarily limit business.
Correct.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right. Thank you, Noah. Appreciate that. All right.
Hey, I have a question. So, 2,500 feet, what was the criteria, what was the impetus for that size? Because that seems 2,500 square feet that's smaller than some of the successful bars that are in La Mesa. Because I was in La Mesa the other night, this past weekend, I guess it was this past weekend. And they had, as you walk along La Mesa, they have patios outside, and they have the heaters, and people are sitting out there up along the bars. And they have the heaters, and people are it's great out there. And I think they're bigger than 2,500 square feet. What was the reasoning for having such restrictions?
So in La Mesa, there's the 3 existing bars that they have. So there's the Coin House, which is behind the Casa Gabriela, and then there's Pete's Place, and then there's the Regal Bar.
Okay.
All of those are the only 3 that are just bars on their own. So all the other establishments are restaurants that serve alcohol.
Okay.
The 3 bars that are there in La Mesa are all in the 2,000 to 3,000 square foot range. So typically a neighborhood style bar is of a smaller size. We also so there's still the provisions to allow someone to do something bigger. So if they want to be a microbrewery, they could come in and have a larger facility. If they want to be an entertainment venue and be larger, they could. It's just that when you see a bar go larger than 2,500 square feet, you typically start seeing maybe multiple pool tables, other entertainment type activities. And so the idea was to do something that was supportive of other activities in the downtown as well as the Magnolia. And so the idea was to limit them in size so that there weren't those issues for the police department. If they come back, we could change that in the future to make it larger.
I guess my hesitation on having that limitation is that we don't exactly have people knocking down our doors saying we want to open up a bar. We wanted to bring something in. We wanted to have those doors open. We wanted to have the opportunity to allow something in. But to put a limitation right out of the gate just seemed like, okay, we're going to allow this in, but we're going to limit you to this size. And I don't know, it just seems like we're already putting restrictions on in the fear that we might have an increase in crime, just like when we put the ban on dogs in downtown, because there was a fear that they might create a problem, and here we are, like nearly 30 years ago. Now we got rid of the ban. So I'm just kind of concerned that we're putting restrictions on something that there wasn't even a concern about it. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like they're not knocking down our door to come in and put in a big bar. I just kind of like to leave it open.
Councilmember Mitchell, I think the council has the discretion, if you want to modify the provision of 2,500 square feet, you as the council have that discretion. We're recommending the 2,500 because we've seen that's what's best practices in other cities. And once you get bigger than 2,500, then there's opportunities to add restaurants or the microbrewery component. So that was the only reason for our rationale, but staff's available to modify the ordinance if you guys want to do that.
Well, what do you guys, what does the rest of the council think? I mean, do you want to have that limit put on us right out of the gate, or do you want to just kind of, I think that limiting us right out of the first.
Go ahead, Phil.
My question, I guess, would be, what is in the area that we're looking to attract these establishments, what is the square footage of those buildings? Do any of those storefronts, are any of them greater than 2,500 square feet? They seem like pretty small storefronts that don't exceed that, even with patio space.
I think a good example might be the Palms Restaurant and Banquet Hall. The Palms is, I think it's over 6,000 square feet.
Okay.
So that's a much larger facility. If you just look at all the buildings on the block surrounded by Reyes, Salzfeld, Maine, and Magnolia, I would say the majority of those buildings are all going to be in that 2,500 square foot range. There's a couple larger structures on the south side of East Main Street. So there's a potential for larger.
No, I have a question. If we limited it to 2,500 square feet, could we put a provision in there that if somebody had the need for more feet, they can come to the council for approval?
Certainly.
On an individual basis? Would that meet the requirement? That way, you see, because my concern is there's going to be some large nightclub type places that we might not really want in our downtown. And so if we give it by right, it kind of takes the discretion out of our hands. But if we take best practices, keep it at 25, but then have the discretion to be able to enlarge it for a specific use, then I think that keeps the decision in our hands.
I hate the idea of it being 25 and someone with a successful model coming to El Cajon, to your point, council member, and they need 26. They bought a place that has 2,600 square feet, and they don't interface with our staff. They don't interface with us. They go, you know what? Forget about it. So, just being aware of the limitations and being somewhat flexible, letting the public know if you find a spot, if something comes up and it's a little over, we're still open for business, but let's just start the conversation.
Is everybody comfortable with that? Okay, but that's the modification we'd like to do then.
Great.
Anybody else before we? All right, thanks, Noah. Appreciate it. All right, let's see if there's any speaker cards on this item. I have to open the public hearing, so I hereby open the public hearing and ask if there's any comments.
There are no comments, sir.
Then I'll let's make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Please vote. All right,
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
any further discussion, or would somebody like to make a motion? Sure.
Okay, I think that we need to, I understand that the PBID wants to allow the multicolored lights, but again, being in La Mesa this past weekend, I really like the look of all the white lights. Their downtown looked really nice. All of their trees were covered in white lights. and it just looked really nice. And I think that we need to, we've talked about this before, and having all white lights looks uniform. It looks nice. It just gives some, it just looks classier. And having the different lights just kind of breaks that up.
Actually, I don't disagree.
And I think that we need to stick to our guns on that. And I'm sorry, but I think that we need to stick to pick a color. And if that's white, then we stick to white. And sorry.
All right. Let me ask one question. Procedurally, if we wanted to bring this into the conversation, we've already voted on this. How do we go back and revote?
I don't think you voted on the concept or the approval yet. You voted just to close the public hearing. So now it's the council's discussion after
Oh, that's
hearing
right.
the public.
You're correct. Okay. Yeah. So we can. All right. So, Gary.
Well, I agree with Councilmember Mitchell. I think the white lights look classy. I'm thinking of walking down Main Street USA at Disneyland, and all the buildings are outlined in white, and white is going to give you, it's going to light up the sidewalks, which I think will make people feel safer. I think it's, the colored ones kind of reminds me of like Las Vegas or something, kind of a cheap look. So I'll be suggesting we go with all white lights.
Steve or Phil?
You know, Noah, where'd you go? There's no restriction, because some of these places downtown, their lights are a long run. It's not just around a couple of windows. It's around the length of the frontage in some cases. Are there any limits in that respect?
No, there's no limit on the amount of lighting that an individual business would use.
Okay, so in that sense, I kind of agree with my colleagues, because if you run 50 feet of red and then up 12 feet and then over 50 feet, that's a really large presence.
There is a place like that.
And other places have large, perhaps 12 by 15-foot windows that they go the perimeter of, and we're talking large things. So I'm surprised to hear you say white only. I was good with that a year and a half ago. So I'm pleasantly okay with making it white lights. The LEDs are much brighter than the incandescents and rope lights and things. So certainly that does factor in. If you have a red that's an LED, that is a very bold statement.
And the LEDs can change colors, so it's not going to be an expense. You just change the setting.
And maybe someday we say, okay, like we do with the signs, hey, during July 4th, if you want to use red or blue, that's up to the staff or something, and for that week around July 4th, or...
Council,
if I may.
Staff doesn't want that discretion. I think the council needs to weigh in on establishing the ordinance. If that's what you want, then tell us that specifically, and let's write that into the ordinance.
I'm fine with white.
If I may just add one additional thing, so the idea too was that we would continue to have the sign holidays. So we have those sign holidays that come throughout the year at Valentine's Day, 4th of July, and through the winter holiday. During sign holiday periods, there would be no prohibition on flashing lights or colored lights.
That's perfect.
Are the lights that the city strings, I don't think those are white, are they?
The city string lights, when I've done drives through downtown, are multicolored.
They're multicolored. So we'd have to change those to white then, right?
Yes.
if we're gonna have businesses doing it, we got.
That's true, and that's fine. I don't mind changing those to white.
Well, wouldn't those fall under the sign holiday?
They would, yes, during the sign holiday.
Yeah.
Oh no! I'm sorry. I thought that they were white. They're always multicolored, or are they always white? I think
I don't know.
I think they're kind of like a.
I'm looking to Mr. Berg.
You want to come down?
Red, green, and white during Christmas.
But are they normally white?
They're normally white.
Okay, all right, never
So
mind.
we're
So
covered.
we're covered, okay.
I'm concerned about the sign holiday part. You said they could be flashing, they could be different colors.
Right, so in the sign regulations during sign holidays, we've always allowed searchlights or different types of lights. And so during those sign holidays, we've always allowed those types of things. And so there was no proposal to change that, only to prohibit that not during sign holidays.
And how many days a year would you estimate those sign holidays are?
They're typically about 2 weeks in duration, so Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, 4th of July, and then you have the period from Thanksgiving through January. So probably
Okay.
And to give the
60 to
council
75 days.
perspective, that's probably the more generous sign holidays that exist in the county. So I think we are very lenient when it comes to the regulation of signs.
Well, I know that we allow signs, sidewalk signs or banners and flags. I didn't realize lights were covered by that sign holiday. But if it's limited to 6 weeks outside of the December season, I can live with that.
Okay. So then we want to make a motion with the incorporation of the prohibition of colored lights and to use only white lights. Is that correct?
And the square footage is part of that as well, right?
Yes.
What we discussed.
And limiting the square footage to 2,500 square feet with the provision that if somebody wants to take it to council, they can bring it to council, we can make an exception.
Yes.
That would be my motion.
Second.
Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Thanks, Noah. Second public hearing, item 19, is a CDBG annual action plan amendment, and I'll ask staff to tell us all about this.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council members. My name is Yanira Pelayo, and I am the Senior Management Analyst with the Community Development Department. The purpose of today's public hearing is to accept public testimony and seek City Council's approval on the substantial amendment to the CDBG Fiscal Year 24-25 Annual Action Plan. Before I begin my presentation, I do want to make it known that there were revisions to the resolution after the report was routed and approved by the City Attorney's Office. The revised resolution does match the approved report and has been distributed to you all, and was also made available at the counter for public review. For CDBG, there is a current balance of $175,683.10. This is coming from two closed projects. That is the 88 Concrete Improvements Project and the Neighborhood Streetlights Improvements Project. We are looking to reallocate $160,000 to a new shovel-ready project, which is the Wells Park Community Center Improvements Project. The remaining balance is about $15,683, and that would just be put into fund balance for another eligible future project. This slide shows the location of the community center within Wells Park. The project itself includes replacing the old roof with a completely new roof. Today, staff recommends that City Council open the public hearing, accept public testimony for the adoption of the substantial amendment, close the public hearing, accept staff recommendations, and adopt the resolution. That concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions or comments.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Any questions? No? Looks like you answered all of our questions. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
The public hearing is now open. Angela, do we have any speaker cards?
There are no speaker cards, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing. Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
All right. Looking for a motion?
Point of order, do we have to have separate motions for each?
One resolution.
Okay, move approval.
Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
We have 3 administrative reports on today's agenda. Item 20 is for the selection of Mayor Pro Tem. Will the city manager please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. It's that time of year, December, and our municipal code says that in the month of December, we rotate or choose a Mayor Pro Tem or Deputy Mayor position. Traditionally, the City of El Cajon has rotated through its City Council members. So rotate through our elected city council members, and so the staff report includes a matrix that shows for the last 4 years, and based on that matrix, Mr. Kendrick would be the next mayor pro tem or deputy mayor. Although the council is not bound to choose that order, but staff would recommend that the council continue its tradition and select Mr. Kendrick as the next deputy mayor or mayor pro tem.
Any discussion on that? Are there any speaker cards on this item?
No speaker card, sir.
Okay, then, I'm looking for a motion.
So moved.
Second. Please vote. Congratulations. How many times have you done this now, Gary?
I don't know. I've been here 22 years, so I lost count.
A few. All right.
And that motion carries by unanimous vote.
Oh, sorry. Step on your toes there. The second administrative report, item 21, regarding updates to the City Council Policy A29. And I'll ask staff to introduce this item. Hi.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members
Marcel, how are
of the
you?
council. Good, thank you. How are you?
Great, thanks.
So I'm here once again to bring forth proposed changes to City Council Policy A29. City Council Policy A29 is the document that outlines the compensation and benefits for all our unrepresented positions here at the city. We have several changes that we are proposing. The first is to request approval to move forward with a request to amend the contract for the police chief, specifically with CalPERS. This is for that specific position to contribute 1% more July 2025 and an additional 1% in 2026 towards the member contributions for PERS. This aligns with the Police Officer Association group as well as the management group. So what we're asking is that the council adopt the resolution that will allow us to start the process with PERS to request that amendment. The next changes are for new classifications. The first classification is for fire recruit. This is to give us a contingency plan. It is a non-safety position in which the city will be able to hire trainees in the event that we don't have enough paramedic firefighters. So it is non-safety. It is a limited term just for the academy. The second classification is for the finance department. I want to clarify we are not adding a position. This is simply to reconcile duties that one of the accountants is currently performing above and beyond their position. The role of this classification is to be a hybrid position between the accountant and more of the technical component of the new Munis system. And then the third classification, I'm going to turn it over to the city manager.
Thank you, Marisol. The city currently has a classification and budgeted position entitled Assistant to the City Manager, and that has been filled for the last few years by Dave Richards. We recently lost Dave as we promoted him to become the Public Works Director. Congratulations to Dave, but a big loss for the City Manager's office. It's left a pretty big hole in the work that we do and has had an impact on our operations. Staff plans on taking that budgeted position and backfilling it with a lower paid position of senior management analyst. We're currently doing a recruitment process for that right now. that will take a workload off of the existing staff. We've also shifted a lot of responsibilities that the assistant to the city manager was focusing on, specifically related to liability, workplace safety, lawsuit management, claim management. We've shifted those over to the HR director, so Ms. Thorne has been transitioning onto those. Staff would recommend that we actually modify the current positions within the city manager's office and create a deputy city manager position, which would allow us to use that to augment some of the work that is being requested of the city manager's office. I would, if the council were to approve this, I would actually promote Ms. Thorne to that position. She would continue to serve as the HR director, so there would be no new positions added. And that would allow us to push some other responsibilities her way as well that would assist in the city manager's office. So with that, staff's here to answer any questions that you may have, and then staff would recommend that the council approve the changes to the A29, or the city council policy A29 that have been described in today's report, and also adopt the resolution that would amend the CalPERS Classic member contribution for the chief of police. So with that, staff's here to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it. Any questions for Marisol or Graham? All right, thank you, Marisol. Appreciate it very much. Any speaker cards on this item?
No speaker card, sir.
Okay, so then I bring it to council.
Move adoption to the changes to the City Council Policy A29 and adopts the resolution to approve the amendment request to the employee CalPERS contribution for the police chief.
Second.
Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
All right, the last administrative report, item 22, is the acceptance of Wells Park improvements. I'll ask staff to introduce this item.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, City Council, and staff. I'm Sinan Kachi of the city's engineering department. Item 22 before you today is to consider acceptance of the Wells Park Improvement Stormwater Treatment and Landscaping Project. The city's general contractor was Willock Contracting. They began construction in late 2023 and wrapped up all work earlier this year. The project includes a $400,000 Prop 1 grant. It's a water quality improvements project grant from the state of California, and it also includes wastewater local ratepayer funds. So the project constructed 3 large stormwater bioretention basins along the park's frontage. These are large swimming pool-sized depressions designed to collect and retain stormwater. During larger storms, the basins have overflow drains when they reach capacity, which run through the 900 feet of storm drain, which was installed throughout the park and also along East Madison Avenue. We also completely renovated the aging trash enclosure and brought it up to current standards. There's new park entry signage, lots of new trees, landscaping, and irrigation. So the image there on the screen is from a few years ago, just to kind of give you an idea of what it used to look like. And then here's present day. This is actually one of the new basins featuring lots of river rock, various plants and boulders. You got to kind of get out there to get the idea of the terrain, but those are deep areas where you see the rock where water can flow into and stay. So beneath the surface of the rocks, there's layers and layers of gravel and soil that filter rainwater as it seeps into the ground slowly. The front of the park has really opened up with this project. Visibility in and out of the park is way up, and our PD and our parks staff love that. Same with recreation. And all the rock and new plants have replaced a lot of grass, so we can expect some water usage savings there as well. Here's the old trash enclosure on the left and our old city monument sign. The trash enclosure has no cover, and that sometimes allows rainwater to get into the dumpsters and wash things away that we don't want going into the city storm drain system. The walls are still in good condition, so we're able to repurpose some of the structure. And there's a new trash enclosure, decorative gates, matching cover, and we've treated the walls with stucco and paint.
Nice.
And then finally, the new entry signs. We have 2 gates like this, and then there's also a third entry sign between the 2 gates along the same fencing. The style and color was selected based on input provided by the city's Parks and Recreation Department. And with that, I have staff's recommendation, and I can answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions? Michelle?
Just out of curiosity, what was the cost of the enclosure for the bins? Do you know?
The ballpark figure was around $90,000.
$90,000.
That's including labor and materials.
And does the roof lift up, or?
It does not. That's a fixed roof.
It's a fixed roof?
Mm-hmm.
And was that pre-made, or was that a design that someone came up and you had to build it?
Some of the components are prefabricated and then brought on site, but there was a landscape architect kind of behind the scenes with some of the look and aesthetics.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
More questions? I'm just curious, when these basins collect water, how long does the water stay standing until it seeps into the ground?
Great question. It kind of depends on the severity of the storm. Within a few hours, generally.
Okay.
We don't want standing water.
Right. That's what I
some
was
of these
thinking.
are meant to really push that water through.
So it wouldn't be for weeks?
No.
Okay. All right. Thanks very much. Yep. All right. Any other questions? Thank you so much. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Any speaker cards for this item?
There are no speaker cards.
All right. I'll bring it back to council.
Move adoption.
Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
There are no commissioner reports on today's agenda. Item 23 is my activities report. Item 20, and which is as reported. Item 24 is the City Council assignments for 2025 calendar this year. My recommendation, unless anybody would like to do something different, and I think it's all working very well, everybody's got their schedules squared away, so I'd like to keep things the way they are unless somebody has a request. Okay, that would be my recommendation. Angela, do we have any speaker cards for that?
No speaker cards, sir.
Okay, then I move approval that we continue as we have been going.
Second.
Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Now we're at activities report of the council members. Councilmember Goebel.
As reported with the comment that yesterday Pastor Roland Slade and I met with our community representative from Supervisor Montgomery Stepp's office out at the cabins at Meridian. And it was a very productive meeting. I tell you, this project continues to exceed expectations. Last numbers that I've heard were 30 women have been placed into more permanent housing, plus at least 5 children, if not more, at this point. And this is just 6 cabins in 18 months. So 30 people going through 6 cabins in 18 months means there are some very motivated women to get out of homelessness, get out of a car, and they're making better decisions for themselves and their lives. And Pastor Slade, thank you for your work on this project.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Kendrick.
As reported.
Councilmember Mitchell.
As reported with one addition, I did attend the Economic Development Council at Gillespie Field. I added that onto my list.
Thank you. Councilmember Ortiz.
As reported, with one comment, I just wanted to recognize one of the videos that the city came out with regarding the fuel spill on Fletcher Parkway. That was outstanding work. So everybody involved, whoever's idea it was, and the execution, those are exactly what the public wants to see. What's going on? Why is it taking so long? It's frustrating day to day driving through construction areas, and we don't know why it's happening. And the video was done thoroughly, explaining the issue, that it's almost completed, and the need as to why that was occurring. So outstanding work all around. Thank you.
Fantastic. All right, we have two joint council member reports. The first one is item 29, is a report from council members Goebel and Kendrick regarding vaping devices. And gentlemen, will one of you tell us about this?
Okay. Well, it's actually come to my attention that kids in school are using these fake watches that are actually vaping devices. They're using highlighters that are actually disguised pipes to smoke bad stuff in, like crack cocaine, and hoodies that are actually vaping devices, and they suck on the string, and they're inhaling cannabis or nicotine, and we have evidence from the CDC that all those things are really bad, especially for developing brains. There's no reason for adults to buy those things. These are exclusively marketed to children, because the adults, they can go ahead and do those things legally. They don't need to have anything disguised. So I think one of the important things for city government is to protect our citizens, and it's children that need the most protection.
Okay. Mr. Goebel, do you have any additional comments? Okay, great. Would you like to make a motion, or does somebody have discussion? They want to ask you questions about this. Yeah.
Mr. Kendrick, do we have any evidence of places selling them here in town?
I don't have any at the moment, but my understanding that they have been sold in town. I mean, they're getting them somewhere.
Okay. I would like to add on to that ordinance, personally, that if a place is found selling them, boom, you lose your license. There's no more warning. These things have been around for a while. These vaping, vapes have been around for around. Everybody knows you're not supposed to sell little kids. So if you're caught selling them, you lose your license. There's no warning. There's no nothing. You sell them, you lose your license, period. Because everybody knows it's wrong. So I'd like to add, I don't know how the rest of you guys feel, but I think clamping down is the only way to do it. There shouldn't be any more warnings. That's just my 2 cents.
First thing I would do is ask our counsel to weigh in on that.
Yeah, we still require due process to be given to anybody who's found perhaps allegedly violating any of our ordinances. So we really can't just go in there and tear apart the counter and remove things. What we can do is we can cite them. If they have a tobacco retail license, that's a violation because this would meet the definition of tobacco products. As you know, we've amended our ordinance to include vaping devices in that definition. And so that comes with a hefty fine. Revocation of the license is a very clear penalty if it gets to that point. But we do have to go through due process in any time we enforce our ordinances like this.
So how many warnings do they get?
Well, they might get one for tobacco-related offenses.
Okay.
But actually, I think at this point, when there's a sting operation, let's say what we call a minor decoy operation, they actually get hit with the first violation and pay $2,500 in order to keep the license going. Second violation is $2,500 plus a suspension of their license for 30 days, I think. that might be 60, and the last is a revocation plus a fine. So it's pretty stiff penalties when we're dealing with violations of our tobacco ordinances, and we could look about incorporating this into that part of our ordinance code.
Okay. It just seems silly that, I mean, everybody knows it's illegal to sell to kids, and we hear this time and time again. Somebody gets caught selling tobacco or alcohol to a kid, and we hear, oh, it's a new employee. I'm sorry, but you're the owner. You know the rules. You tell your employees ignorance of the law is not a reason to, get a pass. And if you know the law, then why get a pass? But if that's the way it is, then
Well,
I guess that's the way it is.
If I had $2,500 for every time I heard somebody claim that it's a new employee, I could have taken my wife on a vacation. And she just
Right? I don't know. Anyway.
Another important thing to point out is that it's probably the owner that's ordering these devices, and they're intended only for children because an adult's not going to buy them.
Right.
So I think that Michelle has a really good idea. Maybe we could make that for these copycat devices, the penalty even more stiff than what it is for tobacco, because these are a lot more dangerous than tobacco. I mean, tobacco, the CDC tells us that 50% of smokers will die as a direct result of smoking tobacco. That's a lot of people. If it was any other product, that'd be taken off the market right away. But, many adults are hopelessly addicted to tobacco, and it kills an awful lot of people. But when they're smoking cannabis or other things, or using crack cocaine in these disguised magic markers, that's on a whole nother level of malice by the owner of that business, because that owner knows that only kids are going to buy it. Right. So if there's some way we could increase the penalty for that, I would be in favor of it.
So, Council, the purpose of today's is to, give us some direction and then some feedback. So that's helpful feedback. We'll give the Council some options of how you may want to penalize. I think to your point, Mr. Kendrick and Ms. Mitchell, an employee at a 7-Eleven that doesn't check for an ID is subject to a $2,500 fine. If you're selling a vaping device that's illegal, that means the owner went to a catalog, purchased it, and it's very purposeful. So I think those could be treated a little bit differently.
It's my understanding that a minor cannot buy any kind of vaping device. Is that correct? That's correct. Okay. So it's illegal for minors to buy any type of vaping device, whether it's a USB drive, highlighters, hoodies. So that's already against the law. And our goal is to stop that through our minor decoy program. Okay.
The way I'm reading the request from the council would be more than just the decoy. It would be no stores in El Cajon could sell devices whether to children or adults, and so it would just be a banned product for sale within the city.
Okay.
And we would go to the, as part of council's deliberation, we would also go and inspect some of these stores and understand how much of that is out there.
Yeah.
It's helpful for the council to understand the extent of the problem.
I'd be curious through this to know, what stores are selling them, and if they are selling them, that might be I know it's random that our minor decoys go into these stores, but if a store has these things, and to Gary's point, they're designed for kids to disguise them, that might be a very strong indication that they're selling them to minors. So we might focus our efforts on those types of stores. But I guess I'd be curious to know how many stores in El Cajon are selling these types of products. So whether that's some investigation or voluntary, surveying of different smoke shops or gas stations or whatnot. I'd be curious to know that. Yeah.
Of course, they're not going to, on a voluntary survey, they're not going to say, yeah, I'm selling this illegal thing to kids.
Sure.
They're going to say, I don't say it.
No, but we do carry the product. That's what I'd be curious
Yeah.
of it. And,
when we first started our program to protect kids from alcohol and tobacco, we had people come in here and says, I own 3 gas stations and I never sell tobacco to kids. But if I get caught, I want it to be only a fine and not suspend my license. And I'm saying, well, what do you mean if you get caught? You don't sell it.
Yep.
I think as you consider an ordinance, you should consider which has more weight. If you violate a city ordinance, there's a different due process than there is if you violate a state regulation. I think we're looking for the more strict of the two.
One thing we need to keep in mind is that under the state law, the minor decoy, that child that goes in there, he's not allowed to lie. That's under the state ordinance. So in real life, they do lie. Say, oh yeah, I'm 25, I'm 21. And so the tobacco industry has such a strong lobby with the state legislatures that the owner of the store knows, well, just ask him if he's 21. And of course they're going to say, yeah, I'm 21. The guy's like 14. And they said, and then if he says, yeah, no, I'm not 21, he knows that it's the state program to bust him, and they could just sell them all day. But with ours is special. Ours is considered the gold standard for the state, where our decoys through the city program are allowed to lie. And that's the big difference. All these things that the tobacco and alcohol sellers are doing, they have such influence with the state legislators. Like I read an article in San Diego Magazine that when we do the stings, they and I don't know if this is still now, but it was 10, 15 years ago, that the head of the person that was in charge of the stings with the police department would call the head of one of the market associations and say, oh, we're doing our stings tomorrow. And then they have a phone tree and they call everybody, don't sell any alcohol or tobacco to the kids because they're doing the stings tomorrow. And then he can go back and report to the city council, oh, nobody's selling alcohol and tobacco to kids. So it was just a waste of time. And that's what I want to try and avoid. These guys are, in my book, there's like a special place in hell for them because they are addicting kids to these substances that they know that will eventually kill 50% of them. And they're profiting off the suffering of others.
Just for a point of clarification, the protocols that we use in our minor decoy operations allows them to say, yes, I'm 21 years old, but they are asked, the vendor is supposed to ask, the clerk is supposed to ask for the ID. They do not give a fake ID. They give their original, their legal ID to them, which reflects that their proper age is less than 21. So that does not become the lie that you're mentioning, Mr. Kendrick. It's just when the request comes, are you 21? They can say yes. But if they're asked for the license, they give them their license.
Right.
Okay. Graham, do you think you have enough
Yes.
information?
Yeah, we'll bring this back probably in February or March.
Okay. Let me see if there's any speaker cards.
Yes, sir. We have one from Rebecca Brandstetter.
Hello.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak, and welcome back to our re-elected officials. Thank you. My name is Rebecca Brandstetter. I represent Community Action Service and Advocacy called CASA. Because of your foresight decades ago, El Cajon is now the safest place in the region for young people and their lungs. Your tobacco retail license, with its rigorous and consistent enforcement, reduced sales of tobacco to youth from somewhere north of 40% to close to 1%. And then came vaping. And unfortunately, young people responded overwhelmingly to the cute vapes and kid-friendly flavors. Vapes were easy to hide in sleeves and pockets, or as your recommendation recognizes, as something other than a vape, like a thumb drive or a lipstick or a highlighter. And the list goes on and on. This type of tobacco product use skyrocketed. Middle schools and high schools even closed bathrooms in the face of the overwhelming vapors. Cheap vapes became available all over, and unfortunately, the sales to underage purchasers also rose in El Cajon. So CASA is proud to support this recommendation as a way to protect El Cajon's young people, to delay their initiation to nicotine use and addiction. In fact, we would encourage you to include flavored products in this discussion. We all know that the voters of the state of California approved a ban for flavored tobacco products a couple of years ago. But the state is not looking out for El Cajon's children. That's our job. And I applaud you for taking this important step to breaking the cycle of nicotine addiction before it starts. CASA is happy to offer any and all support to this effort. And we thank you for your continued care for our young people and for your service to our city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. So I don't know that we need a vote. I think Graham has our recommendations. Anybody want to add anything else before we end this?
No, I would, real quick, Rebecca, thanks for coming. If CASA has any insight into any stores in El Cajon that's selling these, or someone over there wants to just do a quick round to some of them and share that information with the city, that'd be very helpful. I know you've partnered with us in the past, and so trying to get an idea of how many stores are selling these and the impact, that'd be great. Thanks for coming.
Glad to work with you. Thank you.
Second joint councilmember report, item 30, is a report from Deputy Mayor Ortiz and myself regarding federal immigration law. And so I think everybody who's on the planet is aware that the United States of America has elected a new president that has a different idea about how to enforce immigration law than the previous president. And since 2017, California had enacted SB 54, which is a law that says that our municipality cannot coordinate with ICE or Border Patrol and give information about people within our custody, at least under some circumstances. And that if a police officer were to do this, that police officer could be in violation of the law and face consequences as a result. So now we have the federal government saying, we're going to change the way we do things, and we're going to require municipalities to work with the federal government to help with the deportation process that is coming. So it puts the city of El Cajon in an interesting situation. We've got the federal government, which is telling us one thing, and the state government, which is telling us exactly the opposite thing. And we think that we need clarification on this. And so my request was that we send a letter to Attorney General Bonta and ask him to give us a clarification on whose law is to be followed. And does federal law supersede state law? And if not, why? And we'd also like to know what the penalties and consequences would be if we were to work with the federal government. And that's what I'm asking for tonight.
Yeah, I thank you, Mr. Mayor. I completely agree, and I appreciate you bringing this to council. We're a border town compared to the rest of the country, and so the effects of immigration is going to be exacerbated to our staff, to our law enforcement, and especially as other cities, or I should say, as other states comply with federal law. I anticipate that there's going to be a large movement of illegal immigrants to quote-unquote sanctuary states. And so getting clarification as to in what ways we're able to, as you said, is paramount. To put a wrinkle in this as well, the county board just voted today as well to, I don't know how to describe it, but lower the threshold that they're going to communicate with federal authorities. And so what dynamic that brings with our sheriff and the jails is another dynamic that we need legal clarification on as well. I would ask our staff to opine and give us some legal options and opinions from that respect, from the county respect as well as the state.
Gary.
Well, I think that turning over criminals that have committed serious crimes to ICE keeps our citizens safer, and actually it keeps a lot of our immigrant citizens safer because they tend to prey upon people from the same countries that they came from. However, I don't want to see our police dragging kids out of school or church or, factory workers out there that haven't committed, people that are just working and haven't committed crimes. I think there needs to be a distinction because our police department is already overworked. But getting criminals off the street, that's a good idea. Going after children and people just, that work at the various food processing places and restaurants, I could never support that.
Yeah, the issue to me is what does Attorney General Bonta cite as case law that California is superior to federal law? What case law does he cite as an Attorney General? That would be interesting to see because that's really what this is about. Whose law is supreme? Which do we need to follow?
And I really believe this eventually will be decided by the Supreme Court, but in the meantime, municipalities are really in an interesting situation because you've got Tom Homan from the Board of Czar saying that he will prosecute mayors and council members who stand in his way. And you've got, I'm not sure exactly what the state of California's stance will be, but that we should kind of have that clear, I think. Anybody else? So, Graham, do you have any questions?
I probably need a little bit of clarification. On the resolution, I think that's pretty clear. I think what I'm hearing is there would be a resolution declaring the city's intent to comply with federal law to the extent that we possibly can, almost declaring ourselves as a non-sanctuary city. So that's kind of what I'm hearing. Is that I'm seeing heads?
Yeah,
two heads nod.
That's
okay.
where I am.
See all heads. Okay. The second would be the letter to the Attorney General. There's sort of two ways to go about it. One is to ask for a formal legal opinion. There's only two ways that we can formally ask for that opinion. One is through our city attorney, because we're a charter city. The second is through an elected state legislator. So pick them, whoever you want. They can actually request a formal opinion as well. I'm not quite sure the Attorney General will give you a formal opinion on this. He may just refer you back to SB 54, or the formal opinion may take 2 years to come. So the alternative could be the council just prepares, or the mayor prepares, or the council directs staff to prepare a letter with our requested questions. That's kind of what it'd be helpful to understand the direction you want to go in those on the letter, and then I do have a couple questions about some of the questions you may want to ask.
Yeah, I've thought about this. I think that the latter is the way to go because I think that if politically Rob Bonta, I think, would have difficulty answering the question. He wouldn't want to enter into that quagmire, and that we would never see a response, or it would be years away. So I think we would get the same results by sending a letter from the council. Anybody
Okay.
disagree?
Okay, I saw some heads nodding. Because we can't draft this letter, or we could, I guess, right now, just together as a committee, I would suggest that's probably not the most efficient use of our time. Here's some of the things that I heard as you guys were talking. I heard clearly some definition about supremacy clause, to Mr. Goebel's point, asking for case law in which California's laws would supersede federal government law. So probably need some clarification there. Probably need some clarification on our legal boundaries on 54, if there are any areas that we can come up with that aren't specifically addressed in 54. Getting some legal opinion on that would be helpful. Probably an understanding of what our role is, and if the federal government requires us to participate in deportation procedures, how do we respond legally and morally to that? I think the other is in the event that the state and maybe even some magnitudes, if the city were aware of somebody in our presence, in our community, that was preying on others, and we did not have enough reason to arrest them, but we knew that we found them to be a public threat and they were not here legally, what is our moral obligation to our community, and get the Attorney General's opinion about that, and then maybe just some guidance. And if we were to disobey the law, what would the state do as penalty to the city or to its officers? And then maybe just some guidance on, again, balancing community safety and safety. Those are kind of some of the themes that I heard. I can draft some questions around those.
I'd also like to get clarification on the police officer situation.
I'd like to know, will the state indemnify our police officers if they are forced to comply with federal law? Will the state cover their defense on state law if federal people require them to assist with federal law?
And they refuse. Yeah.
Okay, those are helpful. It would also be helpful. This is this is not a typical letter that city managers get to draft. It'd be helpful to have another set of eyes from somebody on the council. It could be an individual, or it could be a committee of council members, or I could bring it back. But I have a feeling that time is of the essence, so I'm open to hear your suggestions, council.
If the council's open to it, I'd be happy to do that.
Sure.
I think that the two people who brought the item should be the ones to review the letter.
I'd be happy to do that as well.
That's fine. We'll have Phil and I then.
Okay, I'll put something together, draft it. Once it goes out, of course, the council would have access to that, and we'll share that with the city council.
Oh, Bill. Gary.
Yeah, one other thing to consider is I don't want to alienate non-criminal, undocumented immigrants, because the police officers, to do their job, I think they have to be not feared by law-abiding immigrants, because they're just going to clam up. So if there's a murder or a rape or something like that, people aren't going to report it if they think they're going to be shipped out of the country. So we have to keep that in mind, because we have an awful lot of minorities in this city, and they're really a part of the fabric of our community, and I don't want to rip up that fabric.
So what I'm asking for today is not getting into the weeds on enforcement, but to ask what our legal position is if we are caught between the federal government and the state government.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Were there any speaker cards on this item?
No, sir, no cards.
Okay, then I think we're done with that. There are no general information items on today's agenda. We have an introduction of ordinances. Item 31 is to renew and approve Policy 706, military equipment use. Staff, will you please tell us about this?
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. If you recall, there was a change in state law, speaking of state law, that requires that any time our city purchases, acquires what's defined as military equipment, that we have to first come to City Council to get that approval. It can't be made administratively. So that's why our purchasing ordinance does not allow the city manager to simply acquire drones and other types of military equipment, bulletproof vests, or whatever else might be in the definition. In addition, the bill requires us to have an annual report prepared by our law enforcement agency and published on the website. And that report is supposed to give us, the public, information about the use of this equipment, how much we have, quantities, and that sort of thing. So every year we bring this back. Sometimes it's a little later than it could have been, but we bring it back, and we're the policy, and it's updated as necessary. Typically, there aren't many changes. It just might be in quantities. But there are, I think there will be, if there hasn't already, be some requests for the council to approve the acquisition, for example, of drones, additional drones. And that has to come from you, be approved by you as a council, not by Mr. Mitchell as city manager. So this is ordinance is to adopt the latest edition of the policy. Policy 706 is what we call it here in El Cajon. And it's required to be approved by ordinance. So we've placed it on for, it's required to be at a public meeting, not a public hearing, but just a public meeting, so the public can, you should ask, Mayor, if there are any speakers on this item. The public has a right to speak on that policy that's being presented to you for adoption, or introduction in this case, and then ultimate adoption in January.
Okay. Council, have any questions? Andrew, do we have any speaker cards?
No speaker cards, sir.
All right. Any further discussion, or would somebody like to make a motion?
Move to introduce the next ordinance in order and direct the city clerk to read the ordinance by title only.
Second.
Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote. And the title of the ordinance is an ordinance reviewing and approving Ordinance 5119 to renew restrictions relating to purchase of military equipment, supplies, or other property for law enforcement use, approving the El Cajon Police Department's annual military equipment report for 2024, and approving Policy 706 Military Equipment Use 2024 edition.
Thank you. We have several second readings and adoption of ordinances on today's agenda. Item 32 is an amendment to the El Cajon Municipal Code regarding dogs in the superblock area of El Cajon. I will ask the city clerk to read this title. But first, Angela, are there any speaker cards for this item?
No, sir.
Then would you please recite the title of the ordinance?
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of El Cajon, California, repealing Section 6.12.150 of Chapter 6.12 of Title 6 of the El Cajon Municipal Code to permit dogs in the superblock area of El Cajon.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the motion.
Second.
Please vote.
Mr. Kendrick, may I have your vote, please?
Oh, sorry.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Item 33 is an amendment to the El Cajon Municipal Code regarding regulation of smoking and secondhand smoke in certain public areas in El Cajon. I'll ask the city clerk to read the title, but first, Angela, are there any speaker cards on this item?
Yes, sir. We have one from Donna Colbert.
Hello, welcome.
Hello, thank you. My name is Donna Colbert, and I'm the new Executive Director of CASA, Community Action Service and Advocacy. CASA's working relationship with the City of El Cajon goes back several decades because of our shared dedication to keeping El Cajon's young people and their neighborhoods safe and healthy. El Cajon was a pioneer preventing youth access to tobacco products, and you set the gold standard in San Diego County for many, many years. Today's small but significant amendments to Chapter 8.32 and 8.33 of the city's municipal code further cements El Cajon's reputation as a city that seeks to balance the rights of adults who still choose to smoke with the needs of those who do not, especially residents whose age or health puts them at increased risk for illnesses due to secondhand and thirdhand smoke. CASA is strongly in favor of these proposed changes, and we firmly stand with this council in protecting our youth from all the environment and social harms of addiction to nicotine in all its forms. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, Angela, would you please recite the title of the ordinance?
An ordinance to amend sections 8.32.010, 8.32.020, and 8.32.030 of Chapter 8.32 of Title 8 of the El Cajon Municipal Code relating to regulation of smoking and secondhand smoke in certain public areas and places of employment, and to amend Section 8.33.090A5 of Chapter 8.33 of Title 8 of the El Cajon Municipal Code relating to licensure of tobacco retailers.
Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
And lastly, item 34 is the second reading and adoption of Measure J to impose a transactions and use tax. I will ask the city clerk to read this title. But first, Angela, are there any speaker cards for this item?
No speaker cards for this.
All right, thank you.
The title is An Ordinance of the City of El Cajon Imposing a Transactions and Use Tax to be administered by the State Department of Tax and Fee Administration.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve. Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
All right, we will now be going into closed session. The city attorney will recite the title and lead us into closed session.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, the City Council will be meeting on 3 items in the closed session. They're all conference with legal counsel on existing litigation. The first, item 35, is relative to, and they're all part of paragraph 1 of, described as part of paragraph 1 of subdivision D of the Government Code, section 54956.9. The first one is a case of City of El Cajon versus William H. Moore and Terry L. Moore. The Superior Court of the State of California in the County of San Diego, with the case number as listed on the agenda. In this case, Ms. Mitchell will not be participating in this discussion and any decision on it, as she lives within 500 feet of the subject property. Item number 36 is a closed session for conference legal counsel. Again, this one is the case of City of El Cajon versus Jessica Detta and Bessman Colasso. It's in the Superior Court of California, San Diego County, and bears the number as reflected on the agenda. And the final one is a conference with legal counsel for existing litigation in the matter of David Matthews versus City of El Cajon, Helix Water District, and Does 1 through 20, again in the Superior Court of San Diego County, with the case number as reflected on the agenda.
All right. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn to closed session. Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to closed session. We'll be back in a few minutes to conclude the meeting. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back from closed session. I will ask our city attorney to report on what happened in closed session.
Thank you, Mayor. The City Council met in closed session on 3 items. The first, all 3 were closed sessions with legal counsel on existing litigation under paragraph 1 of subdivision D of Government Code, section 54956.9. I won't recite the case names and numbers. However, on item number 35, with Ms. Mitchell disqualified and not participating, the City Council, the remaining members of the City Council provided direction to the City Attorney. On item 36, the City Council gave direction to the City Attorney. In item 37, the City Council gave direction to our legal counsel through the City Attorney.
All right, thank you. This brings us to adjournment, the regular joint meeting of the El Cajon City Council, El Cajon Housing Authority, successor agency to the El Cajon Redevelopment Agency, held this 10th day of December 2024, is adjourned till Tuesday, January 14th, 2025 at 3 o'clock p.m., and happy Christmas to all.